Stay healthy. Working wisely. So, last two sessions we were showing you useful workflows, and this time we will show you how to actually set up your custom workflows. Following a couple of months of development, we finally launched our workflows to a full general audience, and coming with that, we also added a possibility of setting up your custom workflows either using existing channels or as a source of your work steps or starting completely from scratch. Quick wrap up what the workflows are good for. We will go to that in a second. In general, it provides you a simple way how to aggregate your taskboard configuration with custom fields, with given task templates, with a set of labels, and on top of that, add very handy documentation of this whole process so anybody can at any point easily identify what should be done, what is good for what, and what should they do next. So without further ado, I would just quickly jump into the topic and switch to our workflows. So our workflows are located on the left side of the sidebar and of the navigation sidebar, and they've been put higher than the taskboards because they provide a functionality which generates taskboard. The biggest difference between the workflows and taskboards is that workflow has a library, and within that library you can provide your customizations or you can reuse existing workflows from either your own teams or provided by Workstreams in the future, published by our audience. So in the first place, you might see this category empty as you have not created any custom workflows. And you might see only our 4 generic workflows which we provided. We will be extending this further and building way broader set of workflows available. But what we wanted to talk about this time was about how do you set up your custom workflow from scratch. So as you can see, you will definitely see this button, create new workflow. So let's have a look at that together. Every workflow will need a title. I wanted to set up a workflow for digital conferences. As it looks like this year, we will still not be able to meet in a physical world, and everything might stay in the digital sphere. Let's have a workflow for a digital conference. So who would use this workflow and how that can be useful? Imagine that you are an organization which organizes 5 to 6 or 5 to 10 conferences per year, and you would like to have a standardized process which you actually can tweak and make better every single time when you are working on a conference, but also reuse the previous settings. I don't think we really have the best category for that, but maybe you choose other and you can give us a feedback that you are missing category of events. Purpose, I would say every workflow should have a purpose. The purpose defines why we actually do this, why we have a workflow for something. So purpose of a digital conference workflow would be organize a digital conference with a clean overview of where do we stand at any point. Now, important topic which we have never talked about so far is a concept of ownership. By default, every custom workflow needs to be owned by at least one user. You can choose multiple owners, but at least one has to be always present. That's for specific reasons. If there is no ownership of the workflow, it becomes very loose and it's very difficult to manage who can make any changes, who can archive this workflow, and who can actually edit and archive and delete any of the entities which create the workflow. We will get to it in the bot. So we suggest that you start with ideally 2 or more owners in case that you might need to have some changes further on, that one person doesn't become a bottleneck. So let's go for Ivan and maybe let's go for Arya. And these 3 are now owners and they are on par. They all have the same permissions and privileges, and they all can make changes on this workflow from now on. Now, taskboard setup. This is the first section of a workflow which defines how do we work on given taskboard. You know it from the classical taskboard. It's called taskboard columns or work steps. We allow you to either start from scratch or you can load from existing task board. We happen to have a channel called Digital Conference, which we used in some demo earlier on today. And I will just reuse that and show you how you can convert this task board into a workflow. So by just simply clicking and load for work steps from existing task boards, you pick a task board which exists, and all the work steps appear in this line straight away. As you can see, it currently has no description. By simply clicking on any title, you are able to add description of given step. With a planned column, it might be rather simple, everything that needs to be done. However, for example, for evaluation, we might want to define what the evaluation actually means. Evaluate whether this task is necessary, who might be the best person to work on it, and add an estimate for budget and complexity. So now we might enter to the stage of classic in progress. Somebody is working on that. Feel free to rename it or name it the way you like. We stick to simplicity, which we use everywhere else, which is in progress. In this case, we want to have a feedback step. The feedback after progress should ideally lead to completion or can lead back to moving backwards into progress. So in progress, again, we can add any documentation about what is this about. Somebody needs to actually do it. Feedback, please tell the person who did the work whether there are any reservations or whether it's all fine. And the completed maybe doesn't need anything else, unless you want to say that after completion something else should be done. That's down to you. So that brings us to the point that every step of our workflow can be documented, and later on when we use this workflow, we are able to at any point see these descriptions on the task board itself. Now let's get to the task card setup. So each task can contain custom fields. These custom fields can be connected to your workflow or to your task board, and they can be easily managed from this place. So every digital conference might have something like expected visitors. In this case, we are talking about the amount of expected visitors. So maybe we can rename it and call it amount of expected visitors. Yes. And additionally, we might want to add a budget for the conference, which already exists. And maybe we can have a starting date, and we can maybe have an end date. So by selecting these 4 custom fields, I'm adding them to the workflow. And as you can see, they are all appearing here. Now, again, the same thing can be done because they don't have a description yet. I can add a description from this point, and add amount of expected visitors in full number. For example, 25,000. Budget, I think that's self-explanatory. Maybe you don't need to say anything else. You might maybe say state currency. State currency. It's a question. Maybe you want to collaborate on this with somebody. Maybe you want to swap it for currency-based custom field. Starting date is self-explanatory. End date is self-explanatory. Custom fields can be added endlessly. It depends purely on your process and on how complex you want to make your tasks and how much information you want to extract from the description into the custom fields. Now, task templates. You might already have existing task templates which you want to add into the workflow. If you do not have any task templates, you might need to create them before you are able to add them into the workflow. I believe we have conference kickoff available, and we might also have a marketing brand materials. And if we have any event task templates, we also have, for example, events, physical events, which might have some useful tasks. Let's have a look. So by selecting these three task templates, I made these task templates available within this workflow, and they will be visible on prominent space. They will not be lost in the endless list of available task templates on the whole workspace, but they will be pre-selected in a specific location we will show you in a second. Last but not least is a list of labels, which should be again highlighted when being in use on this active workflow. So we definitely want to target some IT people. We might want to target some marketing people. We might have a conference about content. We might have a sales conference. And we might also think about travel conference. Right. So these labels will be available for a quick pick when you work on the tasks, and they will be again highlighted out of the pool of all your labels. Again, the same applies. You are able to add any kind of description to any task template or to a label. So conference kickoff contains, you can say that it contains set of tasks needed for successful kickstart of any digital conference. Save. At any point when you hover over this, everybody will be able to see what are these tasks about. The same applies to labels. The descriptions can be added to anything. This allows you a very unique way how you can maintain the documentation and the process very closely together and never get these two disconnected. So I think we have the rough outline of the workflow in place. And by now, I will just click Save Custom Workflow. And as you can see, we have a digital conference workflow available. By simply clicking on that, we get a quick overview of what is what. And as you can see, all the descriptions are in place. The fields which didn't get description do not show any description. Now we have as owner, I have option to edit or archive, and obviously use. We will get to it in a second. I would like to show you how it looks like when you are not an owner, and we, for example, have my new workflow from Arnold. And as you can see, I'm not an owner, and I'm not able to make any changes on this workflow. I can still use it, but I'm not able to edit it. That means I cannot destroy someone else's work. Okay, let's get back to our digital conference. So let's imagine that we would like to actually really get one conference in, and we have concrete topics, and we know that this digital conference might be, let's give it a shortcut, digital conference, DC, travel during Corona crisis. And the topic of this conference, our task board might be organize a digital conference about specific challenges on how to travel during Corona crisis, whether it's possible, and unexpected learnings. By clicking Setup Task Board, you get everything in motion, and voila, the magic just happened. Our new task board has been created out of the workflow, and it contains the steps as we defined. The description of these steps appear on hover on the title. The completed should have none, perfect. And as you can see, the task templates are automatically opened, and they are opened with only those free workflows, with those free workflow related task templates which we selected in the editing of the workflow. Now, these are still available inside of all templates. So if I look for the conference kickoff, they are still here, but they are also highlighted in the workflow related, so you have quicker access to any of these. So let's just use one. Let's use the conference kickoff template. And as you can see, I already had some tasks which were pre-assigned to certain people. And that brings in the pre-assignment on the subtask as well. That brings in possibility of having the subtask being restricted to certain work steps. That brings in a lot of automation which happens out of the box without you needing to do absolutely anything. This way you can easily save a lot of time on the repeated processes and create workflows which really do the job for you. At any point, you can obviously set the work step owners, work step auto assignees, and everything which we preset earlier on. Important thing which I should mention, and it's part of the customization, is that any single time I make a change on the workflow, these changes will be automatically projected straight away to all active workflows. That means task boards created out of these workflows. So for example, if I change the title of in progress column and we call it being worked on right now, and somebody needs, we fix this typo, needs to actually do it with quality, please. And we save this, and we save, maybe we can also add a additional custom field, which might be overall values. And maybe we want to say that we want to measure our value in euro. Okay, so now this field is applied, and we save this. We can see that this actually has one active workflow. If we switch back to our workflows, that's another very nice feature, that you have quick access to all task boards, to all active workflows which came out of the workflow within the workflow section. As you can see, there's a digital conference section, which by clicking on this title, you get a quick overview of what is this workflow about, and then you get the list of active workflows within there. This at the moment links you back to the dashboard sections. In the future, we might work on this and merge it into one global view. This is still work in progress. And as you can see, the changes which are applied on the workflow level are propagated straight away into a workflow. The same way, the custom fields which I've added, for example, overall value, is always visible on every task level. Now we talk about the labels, and the labels from IT, for example, is mentioning used in workflow. So we always propagate the information about what is coming from where and what you can do with it. When you click on edit labels and you search for this IT label, you can see that the changes which I would do on this given label would propagate to all workflows, and it gives you warning. So this is for a reason that we do not get to the point that you are changing content that somebody else might actually depend on. So with the ownership comes a cascade of the permissions, who can edit what, under what conditions. So that in general would be, I would say in a nutshell, how you can create your custom workflows. However, this is just a very short beginning. If you would like to reuse any of your private workflows and just customize them a little bit, you can always do that by clicking, actually you would need to edit or customize a different one. You can customize any of our existing workflows which we provide as a workstream. So for example, if you would like to modify the time of requests and have your own modifications with calendar entries, and add a step which would be calendar entries, you can easily do that. You can add a custom fields. For example, you can add a starting date again, and we have a starting date and duration. That might be do enough. You might say we do not support sabbatical leave, so I remove the sabbatical leave and we just keep vacation and parental leave. And I save this custom workflow. Then again, you have a custom workflow which you can use at any point. The same applies. Use workflow, creates an underlying channel, and set up the whole task board in the full force, ready to be used with task templates ready to go. Now, if I wanted to set up the new digital conference and just have it visible straight away within the same view, all I have to do is use workflow, and use digital conference IT best practices 2021. Now, this way, I suddenly have two workflows, two active workflows over one digital conference workflow. At any point, if I decide to change the workflow, all the active workflows and task boards will automatically update on fly for everybody who is working on them. So if you have repetitive process and you would prefer to have a little bit more structure, we have a future of connection over workflows. So in the previous show, we were showing how can you move automatically content from procurement to accounting. We are still working on this, and it will be coming very soon. You'll be able to link tasks from one board to another board, from one workflow to another workflow when they reach certain stage. This will allow even more reusable setups which your company can benefit from, and your teams can spend more time on creative process rather than the administration. We can go to Q&A in a bit. I would like to switch quickly back to our presentation because we got certain set of questions out of our beta program, and I would like to answer them. So first of them was, who can see custom workflows in the workflow library? Right now, the custom workflows which you create or anybody in your workspace creates are visible to anybody in your workspace. So basically, they are on the level of a task templates or labels. They are shared across the whole organization. We have already heard that it would be handy to have a certain concept of a privacy for workflows and have a possibility of selecting owners which maybe own the set of owners which should see certain workflows. We'll look into it and give you an update hopefully within the next session. Second question, how are custom fields that are part of a workflow protected from editing and removal? So as I mentioned during the quick demo, custom fields and labels and task templates, when they become part of the workflow, they become locked for editing to owners of a given workflow. This obviously brings a little bit more complexity because you might need to have a look at who is the owner of a given workflow and request certain changes, or rethink whether the changes are necessary, or you might maybe be able to with using a custom field as is, or creating your own custom field. So, and there I think we have one more question. How can I collaborate in the design of a workflow while maintaining some sense of ownership? For example, I want to build it up with my team in a group session, but finally set it in stone. Okay, so before we get to our full release of our own chat functionality, we at this stage would recommend to extend the list of the owners and have a chat about what you would like to get included in your communication platform. So maybe set up a channel for the workflow itself and discuss the needs in that given channel. However, very soon we will be launching taskboard chat, which are actually right now are task chats available in our public beta program, and within our chats you will be able to do the same thing as you are able to do in any of your communication platforms. You'll be able to mention people the same way. It doesn't make sense to maybe mention myself, but I don't have anybody else in this channel. It's just a quick example. You'll be able to mention anybody and say, hello, how can we improve our workflow? And you will be able to add attachments, all the standard functionality which you know from the taskboard or from the communication platforms will be supported within our tasks. Our plan is to bring this same component and put it into the workflow itself. That means on the level of the digital conference workflow, we might have a place where you'll be able to discuss changes, request changes, and also add options of possible improvements and see the history, see the ownership changes. So these might be the, I would say, more advanced ways how to get certain collaboration into a different stage, which is more transparent and more live in place rather than in the communication platform. So this was the third question. And now, Nick, Please tell me, did I miss something important, or would you like to add something on top of what I was talking about?
I would say that you did a pretty thorough job, showed a nice use case there, and there's nothing that I would really add beyond that, but we do have some question from the QA.
Perfect.
And
That's always great to hear.
Yeah, so I'll ask that one first, and then something popped up in my brain also. The funny thing is you actually briefly addressed it, so it seems to be pretty important, which is there something planned for the future to connect certain workflows? Can a result or output of a workflow be the input of another one? So
Exactly.
it sounds like the use case was an interviewing workflow going into like an onboarding workflow.
Yes,
You see
yes.
the point?
So we showed this. We showed this last time on the example of procurement and purchasing, leading to automatically transfer to accounting. So I can quickly open that up and just show it. We have the technical implementation in the internal testing stage. So we basically had accounting, if I'm correct. Was that the one? We had the purchasing, definitely purchasing team A. And then we had accounting, one accounting rules them all. That's the one. Okay, so we have one accounting rules them all, which is aggregated accounting taskboard, and then we have a purchasing team A and purchasing team B. Correct. So let me just quickly select them. So purchasing team A, purchasing team B, and one accounting. Now, I have a tasks in purchasing team B, and I move the task into a column which is called ready for accounting.
Are you showing? Or are
I'm
you
showing.
intending to? Yeah,
Pardon, that was a
go for it.
mistake. So let's do it again. Okay, now I'm showing.
Indeed.
Okay, so I move the task back out of here and put it here. So, can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, I will reuse the previous tasks which we had already in there and just do it on this example. Yeah. So we have a purchasing team A and purchasing team B. These are all coming out of the workflow of called purchasing workflow, and these each of them is set up in a way that when I drag a task into ready for accounting, it will automatically transfer to accounting board. So this is a way which we are planning to actually, at this stage, we are still working on the UX, on how to provide this linking and how to make it simple and user-friendly, and allow people not only to do it from the last completed step, but be able to actually fork the process at any point. And this will allow way more customization of what can happen. For example, you have this case of purchasing. You buy a Lenovo laptop. This laptop might need to get to your register. You might actually want to have IT technician to look into it and pre-install some software. So it's not only that the task might be moved, the task might also be copied and might be forked into different workflow, while the original might still keep its original version on the previous taskboard. There is certain complexity into that, but once we have this in place, you will be able to use Workstreams to manage almost anything in your company in a beautiful synchronization without a need to jump between 30 different softwares, and just customize your process, document it in place, and make sure that everybody who jumps on your train knows where to find the information. I hope that answered the questions. If there's somebody would like to discuss a little bit more, please drop us a line, and we can set up a further demo call and discuss your specific needs.
Yeah, great. I think you nailed it. And yeah, I'm curious to see how we get that to look in the workflow library. I mean, from if this is version 0.0 or 1.0, it's already looking pretty cool. And I think once we get a feel for how to show this, the connection between them will be quite
Yeah, I
simple.
think so. It's definitely great that we have certain set of companies who are using our workflows who were using our workflows way before we launched it even into the beta stage, and the workflows are getting a lot of feedback on how the automation can be very useful, but to not get too much in the way. So it's, I think, about finding a fine balance between making it smart but not making it too rigid. So it's still work in progress, but we believe that at this stage it should be usable by the wide audience, and we would like to hear more feedback on that.
Yeah. Speaking about feedback, actually, my question was, it just popped into mind. I didn't think about it before. Was did we, or did you, or could you speak about the idea of notifications regarding workflows? You did mention something about versioning, right?
Yeah.
But I'm curious, maybe we could consider a use case for workflows having approval or requests to update or something like this.
Yeah, that's completely different, completely another set of possible improvements which we could look into is, and that might somehow come together on that the wider collaboration of how can we enable people to collaborate more independently on a certain workflow. So I believe that with the full launch of the chat functionality and having the notifications system coming out of that, we will be able to serve this wave and somehow hook it all together. So you'll be able to actually say, hey, okay, I would like to receive the notifications for the workflows, what its changes, or as an owner, I might get notified when somebody requests changes. I think there's again, it's a completely different set of needs which we need to address. But first, before that, we need an internal notification system and find a way how to fine-tune the notifications which are currently propagating further to your communication platform. As one of the most common feedbacks we are hearing is how can we reduce the level of notifications? The world is being over-notified. So we need to find the right balance between useful and let's say annoying notifications.
Yeah, yeah. I, for one, am a big fan of our internal notification system we're developing. So let's see.
Let's see, Nick. Can I have a question to you? So you work quite a long
Sure.
time on this project. What is your feeling on what was the biggest complexity? What was the hardest?
Ooh, that's a good question. I think it was the conceptual issue was pretty challenging for all of us together as a team. I mean, it really pushed us as designers and developers together to think about how to, extract our existing application into one that, as you said, was not too rigid, because we have this concept of owners, but is also very flexible. So it allows people to kind of automate their processes. And to get this just right, I'm not going into details here, but there was a lot of technical implementations there that was, presented challenges, and I think we made our way pretty well through that.
Yeah, I think so. I think I would like to say big thanks and congratulations to the whole team. It was a lot of work, and as Nick mentioned, there was a lot of back and forths on how certain things should work on the conceptual level. And I think what somehow helped us, at least from my personal view, to distinguish on the right direction was the distinguishing between the task board, and the workflows, where the task board really cares for the flexibility and loose structure where there is not really sense of the overall ownership and permissions, while the workflows are dedicated or designed to cater for a little bit more structured approach when you want to have people who are responsible to being in charge and making sure the process doesn't get too much off the rail and sticks to certain pattern and is still maintainable with the documentation in place. So you don't end up having documentation in a different system where it gets out of date because you just renamed half of the process and everybody actually stays on the same page. So I think that these two things somehow really help a lot to keep it as okay, you want the flexibility and freedom, you go for dashboard. You want something which is bundling all the functionality and permissions together, you go for workflows because you will benefit out of it, especially if you are repeating the same process in multiple contexts of the channels where you want to have a different responsibles for different for the same tasks in different contexts. So yeah, it was I quite enjoyed it. It was very thoughtful process.
I would agree with that.
Good. Do we have some more Q&A?
Yeah, I was just going to say, we do actually, and It is about if we could integrate daily tools or like third-party integrations into the workflows. So it seems like, let's say I want an email when a task reaches the end of reaches the completed column, or it mentions the question is mentioning calendar integration, which we of course have in the application already. And yeah, maybe we could speak about that a little bit.
Okay. So I would maybe start with that calendar integration and the calendar connection. So it's on our roadmap to bring the calendar integration to the next level. The first level which we have in place is your personal tasks or your tasks itself just assigned to you, visible on your personal calendar. The next stage is to have a support for team calendars for given task board. That means as soon as you have any active workflow, you would be able to link that active workflow to a selected calendar. Obviously, you'll be able to merge multiple task boards into one calendar or keep it separate. It will be down to you. But that would be the first, I think, the first integration which we would somehow look into. And then the all possible further integrations, what can be done on as a reaction to certain change, that is a part of a different project which we have on the roadmap, and that's the overall integrations on events, which might start up a bit, I hope, somewhere in the second part of the year.
Okay, so this latter thing you mentioned, these integrations on events, you're talking about webhooks in the developer lingo, right?
Yeah, we can talk about it as a webhooks, but it's in general we already have a concept of the event notifications supported behind the scenes. So the whole architecture is actually event driven. So everything which happens in the workstreams can be broadcasted. And if you are interested in the further integration with workstreams, just get in touch with us, and we can give you access to our dev documentation, where we give you info on how to actually hook up your taskboard events to any external address, where you would then receive the full event of what has happened. It's more that at this stage we are looking for developers to scale actually our operations and to be able to open another work stream which would be dedicated only for the dev support.
Okay. It's relevant for the asker of the question, because they mention like how to integrate with GitHub issues. And I can already imagine anyone familiar with CI/CD in the developer world could already see.
Please just get in touch, and we can definitely open some open source collaboration. There are a couple of open source packages, like I know about one Python library, and I think some other tools which are utilizing our API. So please just get in touch, and we can find a way how to get it moving.
Good. And also, you can get in touch via the workflow library, so you can kill two birds with one stone.
That's correct. There is a big give us a feedback button, please. It's still in early stage. We would love to hear from you how it works or it doesn't for you and your team.
That's right.
Good. So, no more Q&A?
Yeah, I think we covered it.
Perfect. Good. Then I would like to say have everybody great April, and we are looking forward to see you again on the first Tuesday of May at 5 p.m. Central European Time. Thank you. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.